This is where it all began, right?
This is where it all began. April 23rd, 2018. I received the call that a body was located off of Highway 98. I come over to this area, and approximately here was about where the head of the body was at, and stretched out across the ditch with the feet facing in that direction. She had bruises from head to toe, covering her entire body. She had lacerations on her face, stomach, legs.
So this woman suffered before she died?
She suffered. I've never seen anything like it. It was extreme violence. Extreme violence, overkill.
And who would do something like that?
At the time, you don't know. And what you worry about then is, are they loose in our community? What type of individual am I dealing with? Or individuals? Is there one person? Is there two? You have a million questions that you can ask, but you have no answers at the time. The next day, they identified the woman as Eileen Seiden, a young 31-year-old female in the Miami area.
I've known Eileen Seiden for 25 years. She was my best friend. Eileen had called me. She had told me it was pretty where she was. The last talk I had with Eileen was very different. She told me just these horrific things you never think you'll hear from your best friend. She said, I need your help.
It was like a movie. My sister's involved, and I don't know what's happening. I told her to run.
You used the word run? Did you say run?
100%. I said, run, get out of there. Go. She's like, I can't.
She was scared to death.
This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen to us. This doesn't happen in real life.
We received a call from the Sportsman's Lodge Motel. There was a room that they were in the process of cleaning. There was blood.
And what goes through your mind as you walk through all this beauty?
This right here would be the last place that you could ever imagine a homicide taking place, especially right here in this piece of paradise. I'll take you to room number 15.
Now, when the housekeepers first came through this door, what did they see?
They said the furniture was knocked over onto the floor. As they started cleaning the room, they found more and more stuff to be wrong. They noticed stuff missing from the beds, the sheets, anything like that. This bed here was completely covered in blood stain.
So that tells you there was a violent scene going on.
Yes.
And what happened in room 15?
It's unknown.
If these walls could talk, right?
Oh, if they could talk, I'd like to hear them.
Apalachicola, Florida is a wonderful small place.
For Franklin County Assistant Prosecutor Jared Patterson, the sleepy Gulf Coast town of Apalachicola and surrounding countryside are among the last remnants of a bygone era.
It certainly still harkens back to a time before there was condos on every inch of the beach and before there were high-rises. We're referred to here, the counties along this area of the coast, as the Forgotten Coast.
But when a couple heading to a nearby fishing pond discovered Eileen Seiden's battered body on April 23, 2018, Patterson wondered what had brought a killer to Florida's Forgotten Coast.
The horror that it really was. It absolutely shocked people.
It looked like someone was in a hurry. Whoever it was dumped the body and took off.
Lead investigator Lieutenant Ronnie Jones, then with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, says documenting Eileen's unsettling dump site was the first of two ominous events over the next 24 hours. He was soon dispatched to the second crime scene at the Sportsman's Lodge Motel. And that bloody spectacle inside room 15.
So what's it like for you to be back in here?
Brings back some pretty bad memories.
Jones' memories live in stark contrast to the tree-shaded grounds of the otherwise peaceful motel.
As soon as I came in, I noticed the bed. I mean, you couldn't miss it. I mean, this whole area was covered and had blood stains on it.
And when you saw that kind of blood loss, what did that tell you?
I just put two and two together, and I automatically put that back to the body that was found the day before.
You did that quickly, like that?
Had to have. It wasn't just somebody cut themselves and bled a little bit on the bed. I mean, the amount of blood that was on this bed tells me that whoever was here was probably deceased.
Jones recalled there was a smell of vinegar in the room.
And what did that tell you?
That someone attempted to clean the crime scene.
A luminol test for traces of human blood revealed what an apparently hasty cleanup couldn't hide.
The whole entire bathroom lit up.
So that was the scene of perhaps some of her most vicious attacks was inside that bathroom?
Yes.
And Jones says the shower curtain rod was a possible weapon.
On the rod was located a palm print and also blood.
And that's significant evidence, right?
That's right.
Testing would soon confirm that it was Eileen's blood in the motel room. Now came the gut-wrenching duty to notify Eileen's sister, Francesca Seiden.
He said my sister was murdered. I don't know, like, what do? You look for support. That's all I could do. I didn't understand why, like, it was given to me, again, like, to handle another loss.
While growing up in Miami, then 16-year-old Francesca and 9-year-old Eileen faced their first tragedy when their beloved mother, Mirtha, passed away from cancer.
How did the two of you deal with this?
We didn't talk about it because it was so fast.
6 years later, their father, Frank, a successful furniture manufacturer who Francesca says shared a special bond with Eileen, suddenly died from a heart attack. It left Eileen, then 14, an orphan, and 22-year-old Francesca with a decision to make.
I signed the papers and I became her legal guardian.
And what did that mean? What were your responsibilities?
I became a parent. I had to take her to school. I had to pick her up from school. I had to finish my own school. I was working. I didn't have time to grieve. And I don't think that she did either.
7 years later, Francesca moved to Los Angeles on her own. That's when she says Eileen, now in her 20s, began grieving their parents.
She started to think a lot. She became more sensitive.
Something like losing your parents has long-lasting effects throughout your life. It's obvious that it did.
This is Eileen's best friend. Not wanting her name associated with this case, she has asked 48 Hours to refer to her as Allie. She remembers a strong and determined Eileen making it on her own in Miami.
She worked as a property manager. She lived in a great apartment. You know, she paid her own rent. She made her bills. She was very independent.
Francesca saw that independence firsthand when Eileen made an extended visit to LA in 2016.
Looking back, do you wish she had stayed with you?
100%. Because whatever happened when she went back to Miami is when she reconnected with Zach.
Zach was Zachary Abel, who Eileen had known since they were teenagers.
I'm not sure if I had the best reputation in high school. At first, she wasn't really sure about him.
But years later, she and Zach Abel started dating.
I think in the beginning, Eileen found Zach fun, but I think it changed pretty quickly.
Investigators in Franklin County would soon learn all about Zach Abel. They discovered that Zach, Eileen, and this woman, Christina Araujo, had all been seen in the Apalachicola area. Detectives also learned the three shared a room at the Sportsman's Lodge, room number 15.
We needed to know what happened inside that hotel room. Outside of 3 people entered and 2 came out carrying a body.
Off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Captain Mike Pickavet set sail on his 50-foot boat.
It's kind of weird trying to remember any good times. There just weren't. There was always some issue.
Back in 2018, Mike would play a central role in Eileen Seiden's murder investigation. He knew Eileen and her boyfriend, Zach Abel, well.
Zach is just very entertaining. He's very extroverted.
Mike had met Zach by chance at a bar about 7 years earlier.
He came up to me at Duffy's and said, "Hey, I like your shirt." And I'm like, "Okay."
Then Christina came up.
Christina Araujo, Zach's girlfriend at the time. The two had been dating for about 4 years. Mike says Christina immediately started boasting about her powerful father.
Right out of the gate, she said, "Oh yeah, my dad's a major with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department, and if we ever get into any trouble with the law, he can take care of it." I was like, "What? Who says that?"
Despite their odd first meeting, Mike says he began hanging out with the couple. What followed were years of wild nights, wild parties, and lots of heavy drinking.
That was their go-to thing. Okay, we've got to do shots of this, shots of this.
But Mike says there was an interesting power dynamic in the couple's relationship, with Christina, who is 8 years older than Zach, calling the shots.
She was very controlling and very directing. He would follow her lead with stuff.
One day in 2016, Zach stopped by Mike's boat, but not with Christina. Instead, Zach introduced Mike to Eileen Seiden. Mike could tell Zach now had 2 women in his life.
It was the weirdest thing. If your relationship's not working, just end it and move on.
However, Mike says that Zach couldn't make a clean break from Christina, who was also his business partner.
He tried so many times, he just didn't know how to. And then also all the threats all the time that she could make him disappear. Every time she got drunk, she'd say some weird things.
Eileen's best friend, Allie, says Zach and Eileen began to secretly date.
She seemed to love him so much that she was still hoping that he would, decide to be with her. He would lead her on to think he was trying to end it with Christina.
In 2017, Eileen unexpectedly lost her job as a property manager.
She was really starting to lose control of her own life.
Allie says that may explain why Eileen eventually started working at Zach and Christina's used car dealership.
It wasn't the independent life that she had always lived.
Allie says Eileen continued to pressure Zach to break up with Christina for good. But when Zach finally tried to end things with Christina, she countered with an unconventional proposal.
It was not the answer that anyone expected. Christina came back and said, "Well, why don't we try and all be in a relationship then?" It now became this opportunity for this throuple, 3-way kind of relationship.
A throuple is a romantic relationship among 3 people. Allie says Eileen was against the idea.
And Eileen said, "Absolutely not. There's no way. It's never going to work." And there was kind of a crickets for a few weeks.
But Allie says Eileen later changed her mind. The trio was now a throuple.
I was in shock, really, but also a little bit happy for them that maybe this could work.
But it didn't work. Before long, there was trouble.
This whole dynamic started to change where one of them always seemed to be the odd man out or was jealous. At that point, it just started to spiral out of control.
According to Mike Pickavet, things escalated, leading to irrational behavior and fights fueled by alcohol. He says Eileen and Christina traded punches often, usually resulting in black eyes on one or both of the women, that they'd sometimes hide behind big sunglasses.
It was an everyday thing, every second day thing, I could say.
Allie remembers things differently. She says Zach was the main aggressor in the relationship.
Eileen would call me and say, you have to come over here, like he hurt me again. And I'd rush over there and photograph her and beg her to go to the police.
But Allie says Eileen refused, fearing Christina's law enforcement connections would work against her. Eileen's sister Francesca was furious when she learned of the abuse.
I wanted my sister out of this situation. I wanted her out.
It's hard to leave.
It's hard to leave, and I had this feeling that Christina was more violent of the two.
It was really difficult to see her going through a time like this. It was just so hard, and she was scared to death.
Once, Allie says the abuse got so bad, she took Eileen to the emergency room.
They took her to the hospital because they have to report things, but she wouldn't say where the bruises came from.
Eileen's best friend had to deliver a hard truth.
Eileen, you have to break up with this guy. Someone's gonna end up dead. When Eileen was in real trouble, it was hard to get anyone to come rescue her.
The path that led to Eileen Seiden's murder may have begun weeks earlier. In 2018, Allie was surprised that despite the physical violence in their relationship, Eileen had decided to move in with Zach Abel and Christina Araujo. The throuple was now working together, sleeping together, and living together.
Eileen was trapped in the relationship because she was trapped financially, but she felt that that was one last chance to make it work. It was like a 1 month or 2 month trial.
But within a few weeks, Allie says Eileen had had enough.
Eileen was just going to move out. She was really done with the relationship.
But Eileen's plans to leave were halted on April 7, 2018, after Zach and Christina had gotten into a violent fight. Allie says she got a call from Eileen on Zach's phone.
She was going to leave and get Zach out of the house, but like to go to a coffee shop. The next call I got was from Christina. She was angry and furious.
Allie says Christina threatened to report the car Eileen and Zach were driving in as stolen in an apparent attempt to keep them from leaving her behind. Allie immediately warned Eileen and Zach.
Instead of coming around and coming back like I thought they would, they hit the gas and went to Georgia. I said, what are you doing, Eileen? You don't have your phone. You don't have a wallet. This is crazy. She said, we're going on a road trip. This is a good thing.
But the road trip wasn't a good thing to Christina Araujo. She began harassing Zach and Eileen, sending a storm of angry texts. You two deserve each other. Christina sent more than 150 texts in roughly 24 hours. All went unanswered, including this one. My dad will be calling you. Later, Christina issued this threat. You effed me over, and now I'm effing you over.
I was just trying to tell her, Christina, why don't you worry about your own life?
About 48 hours into the road trip, Zach and Eileen were heading to Texas, and Christina seemed to have a change of heart, texting, if you want to come back home, come back. You never have to question my love. For reasons that are unknown, instead of coming home, Zach invited Christina to join them, and she flew to Dallas. But with the throuple united, the old problems returned.
Eileen started to call me from Zach's phone at night saying, this is getting bad. And I don't know what to do. It wasn't until Christina arrived that started to happen. I was really worried someone would get hurt.
By day 10 of the road trip, Eileen's older sister, Francesca, was also worried. She hadn't heard from Eileen in a while. When the trio stopped in New Orleans, Eileen finally called Francesca and shared an alarming suspicion.
She's like, I think they're gonna kill me. No joke. So I was like, Eileen, run to the nearest gas station, go tell the person.
Call 911.
Yeah, run to I said, run, get out of there, go. She's like, I can't.
Francesca, desperate to help, tried to get more details from Eileen.
If I had where the address was, I would have called the police then and there. But she had to go. She had to get off, and she hung up. I was extremely frustrated, but I was scared.
With no way to help her sister, Francesca hoped Eileen would stay safe. The road trip continued into its second week. The trio then headed to Panama City, Florida, but a missed exit led them to the forgotten coast.
The road trip is difficult to understand. Partying one day and murdering the next.
David Adlerstein is a reporter for the Apalachicola Times, one of the oldest newspapers in Florida.
I've been covering the Eileen Seiden case since the week it happened.
On the evening of April 21st, the trio, seen here in this screenshot from surveillance footage, stumbled into the quiet peace of Franklin County.
They went to a popular restaurant, the Red Pirate, played miniature golf, partied.
At the recommendation of a local, the throuple headed to the nearby Sportsman's Lodge Motel. They reserved the last vacancy of the night, room 15. The next morning, on April 22nd, 2018, the throuple made a plan.
They decided they'd spend another day there, not get back on the road, and make it a party. So they got up in the morning and went to the liquor store.
Here they are in these screenshots from the store's surveillance footage. While there, the trio purchased large bottles of vodka and Fireball whiskey.
When I went to investigate their path that day and went to the liquor store, the clerk, she pointed out that the Fireball that they bought was the largest bottle you could buy. And this is just the three of them.
The throuple then returned to the Sportsman's Lodge Motel.
I don't think Eileen was having fun. I think she was just trying to maybe get by and stay alive.
Allie says she spoke to Eileen that day.
Eileen said, I need to leave him. I'm telling you, I'm like a sex slave. He has this really scary look in his eye. It's very scary. It's different. And she said, I need your help.
Allie says the two friends had crafted an escape plan. Eileen would get on a bus from Tampa, the trio's next destination.
I bought her a Greyhound ticket because she didn't have a wallet.
The bus would drop Eileen off near Miami, and Allie would take her home. Eileen just needed to get on that bus, and she'd be safe.
And then, I never heard back. I never heard anything after that.
The next night, hundreds of miles away in Fort Lauderdale, Mike Picavet was home and alone. There was a knock at the door. It was Christina Araujo and Zach Abel.
I was like, okay, where's Eileen? And right away, Christina says, oh, she ran away. And I said, bull. I said, where is she? And Zach right away, it started to choke up, and he said, she's dead.
The news was shocking enough, but Mike says once Christina was out of earshot, Zach told him what happened.
He said Christina killed her. He woke up, she was dead next to him, and he tried to give her CPR. Then wanted to call 911. Christina said no and told me you can't call 911. For some reason, he kept on saying he had to protect Christina. I'm like, what do you got to protect her for?
Mike says he wanted to protect both of his friends. He feared a violent outcome if he called 911.
I didn't want them to get killed. I just wanted to make sure that they were brought in a safe way. And the only thing that I could think about is to go talk to her father.
Christina's father, Colonel Tony Araujo, the one Mike says Christina had always bragged could make her problems go away. When Zach and Christina fell asleep, Mike took this photo and says he went online to search for Christina's father, a man he had never met.
So I was panicking, trying to find his phone number.
When Mike finally got a hold of Colonel Araujo, he didn't immediately reveal the deadly news.
I said, I got to talk to you. It's about Christina. It's very important.
Mike says Christina's father directed Mike to meet him at an odd place, a gas station.
So I went up there. I said, Christina killed somebody. And he says, you know I'm a cop, right? I'm like, yes, sir, I do. He right away said, wait right there.
Mike says Christina's father then brought him to the sheriff's office to make a formal statement.
He did what was the right thing to do. He got two other people to ask me all the questions.
Later that day, Mike was shown a photo, and he was the one to identify the battered body of Eileen Seiden. With that confirmation, police descended on Mike's home as Zach and Christina were about to leave. They were arrested and brought back to Franklin County. The pair were later charged with first-degree murder. It would take almost 6 years before Zach Abel and Christina Araujo would face a jury, and by then, only one of them would stand trial.
You're healing, you're doing the things that you need to heal, and then you're stopped.
For almost 6 years, Francesca Seiden lived in agonizing limbo as her sister Eileen's case, complicated by having two defendants, face delay after frustrating delay.
And now you're gonna get ready for this big moment, and it stops again.
Finally, in January of 2024, at the Franklin County Courthouse in Apalachicola, Florida, Zach Abel was about to face trial. He had pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder and would stand before the jury alone. 8 months earlier, Christina Araujo took a plea deal for a lesser charge of second-degree murder. So she admitted taking part in this.
Yes, she implicated herself in the actual beating of Eileen.
After studying the mountain of evidence, prosecutor Jared Patterson believes Zach Abel was more responsible in Eileen's murder, and the state is relying on the jury believing Christina Araujo's version of what happened inside room 15.
The only one who has told us anything about what happened in that room is Christina Araujo.
Once Christina made her plea deal, she would become the prosecution's star witness.
Print reporter David Adlerstein, camera in hand, was there as Christina Araujo transported the courtroom back to the evening of April 22nd, 2018. Araujo testified that she, Zach Abel, and Eileen were relaxing in the room at the Sportsman's Lodge after a day of heavy drinking.
When Zach drinks, does he act differently?
Yes. It becomes very aggressive, very mean.
Zach Abel became violently enraged, says Araujo, when Eileen posed a seemingly innocent question.
She said, Christina, guess what?
And she looks over at Christina and says, hey, Christina, guess what? How would that sentence be finished?
I have no idea because she never got to finish it.
Zachary got up immediately and went over to her and was in her face, hitting her. He was just yelling at her, telling her, you always start problems.
Araujo admits to also hitting Eileen as she demanded to know what she was about to say. She never got an answer.
And I got so frustrated, I left the room.
After stepping outside room 15 for a few minutes, Araujo claims she returned to find Abel and Eileen in the bathroom.
When I opened the door, he had something white in his hand, like if he was poking at her.
The medical examiner was able to identify small circular bruising to the body of Eileen that could be consistent with a shower curtain rod.
Like the shower curtain rod investigators recovered that had palm print impressions in Eileen's blood.
Whose palm was it?
The palm print belonged to Zachary Abel.
The assault continued near the bed, says Araujo, where she says Abel reached for his wooden walking stick.
He hits her several times with it. When he hit her in the back, though, the stick broke.
We had actually found pieces of that wooden staff in the hotel room. We didn't realize the significance of it until we found the other piece in the vehicle that contained our victim's DNA.
Araujo says she watched in terror as Abel began using that stick to sexually assault Eileen.
Christina's description of the crime was horrifying to listen to. Eileen clearly suffered terrible death.
Adlerstein recalls the medical examiner saying Eileen's injuries reminded him of those he had seen in motor vehicle crashes.
As a reporter, I try very hard to not be emotional. I distinctly remember fighting back tears.
Araujo claims she eventually put herself between Abel and Eileen, and the attack finally stopped. Eileen was badly beaten, but still alive, she says, and the exhausted trio just fell asleep.
I didn't think she was going to die from it.
Araujo claims it wasn't until she woke up the next morning that she realized Eileen was dead. She says she only participated in the cover-up out of fear of what Abel might do to her.
She seemed to me genuinely remorseful. Others had different opinions.
Who is Christina Araujo in your book?
Manipulative, cunning, chameleon. I think that there's evil in her.
Alex Morris is Zach Abel's attorney. He says Christina Araujo acted alone.
I believe that she is the murderer.
Let's talk about her story.
Morris says it was Christina Araujo who beat Eileen, and that photo taken by Mike Picavet at his home after the murder shows she had injuries to her hands and feet.
Which tells you Christina must have been the attacker.
That's right.
Christina Araujo was the one with homicidal intent, says Morris, triggered when Abel and Eileen took off with her in the rearview mirror. And he says those threatening texts that she sent to Abel's phone before joining them on the road trip read like a confession.
There are threats of bodily harm to both Eileen and Zach in the messages.
You come near me, Ho, I will kill you.
I think it speaks for itself, and that's exactly what happened.
After Eileen's murder, Morris says Araujo wiped down the motel room using the vinegar that Ronnie Jones would later smell. He says Abel's palm prints on the curtain rod got there when he moved it during the cleanup.
He was instructed to pick the curtain rod up over there and put it over there.
By
Christina.
This toll booth surveillance photo from after the murder shows that Christina Araujo, and not Zach Abel, was the one driving the car. And therefore, Morris says, she was the one in control.
The evidence indicates Christina to be the one giving the directions and had everything to be able to manipulate the situation.
Manipulating Zach Abel, says Morris, because of those threats she had been making for years about her father's influence in solving her problems.
Bottom line is Zach was fearful of Christina's father.
Abel chose not to testify. When Morris made his final arguments to the jury, he concluded the evidence showed there was only one person who wanted Eileen Seiden dead.
They haven't proven any motive as to why Mr. Abel would be interested in murdering Miss Seiden. But I'll tell you where motive lies, and it's clear as day, and that's with Miss Araujo.
The motive being, I want rid of the person who's taken my man.
So jealousy.
Yes.
In his closing, Patterson said Christina Araujo already accepted her role in this crime. He asked the jury to hold Zach Abel accountable for his part by finding him guilty of murder.
They lived together, they worked together, they own a business together. They went to the Sportsman's Lodge together. They emptied out the room together. They ran away together. They got arrested together. The only thing they didn't do together was kill Eileen Seiden? No way.
But who would the jury believe?
She wasn't born here, and she didn't live here, but she was left here, and she'll always be remembered by Franklin County.
Residents of Florida's Forgotten Coast will now long remember Eileen Seiden, says Ronnie Jones. Almost 6 years after her death, the community waited for justice for the stranger they now had come to embrace as one of their own.
What was going through your mind as the jury begins its deliberation?
Make it quick.
I was told by the jury foreman that when they first went in, there was 10 in favor of first-degree premeditated murder, with 2 holdouts.
All right, everyone, please be seated.
After about 5 hours of deliberations, the jury reached a consensus.
In the case of the state of Florida versus Zachary Ray Abel, the defendant is guilty of the lesser-included offense of second-degree murder.
Second-degree murder, just like Christina Araujo. Adlerstein says the jury foreman told him they just couldn't decide if Zach Abel had actually intended to kill Eileen.
They knew that Christina had pled guilty to second, and I think they eventually said, we're going to give him the same.
It doesn't tell me that they're equally responsible.
Mike Picovet says even with the verdict, he is convinced his friend played no part in Eileen's death.
To me, there's an innocent man sitting in jail.
I think they're both just as guilty as the other.
Now retired from law enforcement, Ronnie Jones spends his days tending his bar in Apalachicola. He says he's still left wondering what really happened inside room 15.
Is this case a mystery to you?
It's not a mystery on exactly what happened, but exactly why it happened. That is what still bothers me to this day. Why?
Like what Eileen might have been about to say that sparked the attack.
It was my understanding in the rumors that she was fixing to disclose the fact that she was pregnant.
Pregnant? And was she pregnant? Did you learn that at autopsy?
I was at the autopsy and she was not pregnant. I don't know if she thought she was or not.
When it was time for sentencing, Zach Abel finally spoke and told the courtroom another twist in this tortured story.
I had stopped and I grabbed a ring pop and I proposed to her with a ring pop and asked her to marry me. And she said yes. And me and Eileen were gonna go our way and leave Christina out of it.
Zach spoke at his sentencing and said that he'd actually proposed to Eileen during this trip.
I think that is just BS. It's a great story, but no.
I have been in the justice system in one form or another for 40 years. Rarely have I seen the sort of injuries that I saw on Eileen Seiden.
The judge told Abel he wished he could impose a harsher punishment before sentencing him to the maximum, life in prison.
In the state of Florida, life means life. We don't have parole.
At her sentencing, Christina Araujo's father, Colonel Tony Araujo, set the record straight. He said he never used his influence to benefit his daughter, and he recalled the conversation he had with her after the murder.
You will own up to the truth. You will accept responsibility. You will be the voice of the victim, and you will testify under oath in a court of law. And then whatever is sentenced to you, that's fine.
There was no agreement with her as to the length of sentence. She gave her statement with the knowledge that she could still receive life in prison.
I think about that day every day of my life. The details haunt me, and the memories keep me up.
The judge acknowledged her cooperation and sentenced Christina Araujo to 25 years.
Justice has been served. He won't beat up any more females, neither will she.
I think that every woman kind of thinks, I would leave if I was in that situation. I would just get up and leave. I would never tolerate that.
Eileen's best friend, Allie, hopes there will be more compassion for those trapped in abusive relationships.
It's always the, I'm sorry, it's never going to happen again. And you believe it because you're in love and things are good 95% of the time, but the 5% that are bad are so bad.
With your sister gone, how do you want her to be remembered?
I want her to be remembered as a sweet, loving human being who unfortunately had lost her parents at such a young age, but she was still so sweet. Like, she was such a sweetheart. Her soul was so kind.
I can only describe it as evil, something horrible.
From 48 Hours, this is Trained to Kill, the dog trainer, the heiress, and the bodyguard.
He couldn't control his obsession.
Who was the hunter and who was the hunted? Follow and listen on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're going to continue to work relentlessly till we find Hannah Graham. Somebody's got to know where she is. Because it's been a week and we can't find her.
My Facebook feed was just waterlogged with, Hannah Graham missing. My initial reaction was, how could this be?
The reaction on Twitter is a pretty good barometer of the way people care. Neil Augenstein, WTOP News. The disappearance of Hannah Graham brought us down here to Charlottesville for what was the most extensive search in Virginia history, and it left the audience across the country hungry for every detail on Twitter. Everyone had an idea about what police could do to find her.
She's our only daughter, and she's enormously precious to us all.
Immediately I contacted the police department and said, what do we have here? Do you feel like this person went missing on her own? And they said, no, this was out of character. This is being seen as suspicious. You've got different women within that area who had gone missing. You had Morgan Harrington, Alexis Murphy, Hannah Graham was the latest one. All these names, you go down the list.
Continuing coverage now for the search for Alexis Murphy.
5 years since Morgan Harrington was last seen alive.
The search is on for a missing University of Virginia student.
Your heart squeezes and you say, oh no, not another one.
I received a call from the University of Virginia police who informed me that Morgan's purse had been found in a parking lot.
I knew that minute something terrible had happened.
We still haven't found Alexis, but the tapes in and of themselves are haunting. What happened, what transpired in those minutes that we don't have her on camera that caused her to disappear literally into thin air.
We are part of a club. We're part of an ugly little club.
The surveillance tapes really were the turning point in this case.
She's coming from the direction if you were coming from the University of Virginia.
In one of those images, she's walking with a man.
We do have tape here, supposedly shows them together.
After the Hannah Graham case broke, my chief deputy said, that looks just like our composite. He looks like the assailant in our case. In my mind, this was not a first-timer.
We had these missing girls, and of course their families were looking for answers.
DNA science is ultimately what connected 3 separate cases.
I'm Susan Spencer. Tonight on 48 Hours,
Hannah Graham, Deadly Connections.
"48 Hours" will be back in 90 seconds.
Charlottesville is beautiful. Beautiful downtown mall, great restaurants. It's a college town.
Charlottesville, Virginia. Historic. Quaint. Home to the prestigious University of Virginia. 18-year-old Hannah Elizabeth Graham loved it here. When she went missing on September 13, 2014, she had just started her second year. A few days later, her distraught parents, Sue and John Graham, appealed for help.
This is every parent's worst nightmare. I'm certain that everybody knows that what happened to Hannah could happen to their child. Please, please help us.
The disappearance outraged the entire community, from fellow students
You make things good, Hannah Graham.
to the police chief, Tim Longo.
We're going to continue our work. We're going to continue to work relentlessly until we find Hannah Graham.
We knew at that time that she had gone out to dinner with friends that night, and that, like most college students, she had gone to a couple parties.
I'm going to start with the family. And
WTVR reporter Laura French, a 48 Hours consultant, has followed this story from day one.
We know that after she left that party, no one had heard from her other than a couple text messages. And that text at 1:06 a.m. was, I'm trying to get to a party, I believe, and I'm lost.
I'm lost.
It wasn't completely out of character that she'd be lost. Here she moved into off-campus housing. School had just started. We were just a few weeks into the school year. And, you can lose your bearings, especially in and out of that downtown mall area.
So this is the mall in Charlottesville. This is the last place, really, where we see Hannah Graham.
That's right. This is known as the Downtown Charlottesville Pedestrian Mall. And it is the last known image that we have of Hannah Graham on this mall.
Popular place with the kids?
You definitely see kids down here, but this is not what we would call the hangout.
British-born Hannah Graham moved with her parents to Virginia when she was just 5 years old. Her friend, Lila Nasser, remembers her as super smart, musically gifted, and with a dry sense of humor.
She's one of those people who just knew who she was. Very much a go-getter. She was very confident and driven.
Hannah is witty and much smarter than any coach that was on the field.
Just shy of 6 feet, Hannah was a standout on the softball field. High school coach Craig Maniglia.
As time went on, she moved herself up to her senior year when she became captain of the team.
Vivacious, popular, talented, no surprise that Hannah Graham's disappearance exploded on social media.
Prosecutors say that will happen.
WTOP radio reporter Neil Augenstein, who worked with 48 Hours on this investigation, was tweeting details almost by the minute.
We've been able to tell it as it's developing. With Twitter, you can tell the little bits that caught your attention and do add color and perspective and context to a story. Our county sergeant testified today.
And the story became even more intriguing as video began to surface. Here is Hannah at a UVA event only 10 days before she went missing. An eerie contrast to the grainy images of her caught on tape by surveillance cameras the night she disappeared.
Well, the Hannah Graham case resonated so much more with Charlottesville because she was living here in Charlottesville.
Attorney and longtime Charlottesville resident Lloyd Snook has been following the case closely.
Her disappearance was reported within a day. They could track through the various video cameras where she had gone. She had been downtown, and then the trail goes cold. Then she just vanished.
He walked us through the videos of Hannah's last known hours, starting as she leaves her apartment, a normal kid out on a Friday night.
This is McGrady's. This was a restaurant, and you'll see Hannah Graham coming in from the left, the lower left. She's highlighted. Now, I'm going to stop that because, you know, that stumble to some people who watch this is very telling.
She seems a little unsteady on her feet, both here and later on in the video. She's coming from the direction that you would come from if you were coming from the University of Virginia.
And then after a few minutes, we see her, she reemerges. And what do you think this was all about?
My guess, purely a guess, is that she went by McGrady's to see if a friend was in there who might buy her a drink or something like that.
Police believe Hannah had been drinking that night. She's next seen on video from a nearby gas station.
And this time, I mean, she is running. Who knows what that means?
You know, it's really hard to say. It's not a particularly dangerous neighborhood. It's a well-lit area.
And I think that the cops have looked at this and there doesn't appear to be anybody running after her.
Right.
So she's running now. She's going toward the mall.
Just seconds before Hannah next surfaces on security footage near a local pizzeria, its camera catches a man walking on the downtown mall.
You'll notice he's a pretty distinctive-looking guy. He's a big man, he's got dreads. It's kind of obvious why people would notice him over the course of the next half hour.
He disappears here briefly, and then we're about to see Hannah here. She's by herself.
By herself.
But soon the man makes a U-turn and then reappears, now walking in Hannah's direction.
So you see a pretty big guy there.
Yeah.
Keeping behind several other people.
And at that point, he's probably 20, 30 yards behind Hannah.
The last video from a jewelry store camera shows Hannah and the unidentified man now walking side by side.
And they seem to be walking in sync together.
By enhancing the picture, police note that his arm is around her waist.
Very strange to watch two people on videotape and realize how much their lives are going to change. You can only imagine what was going on in her mind. You can only imagine what was going on in his mind.
There is no video from her last known stop.
So this is the Tempo Bar. This is the last place that she was seen in public?
In public. No images of her, but the police say that several eyewitnesses put her inside that bar with the suspect.
If that young lady's touched your life in any way, you have the responsibility to help us find her.
Somebody knows what happened to Hannah. We don't know who that is, but somebody knows what happened to Hannah.
That somebody, police think, may well be that man on tape who made the odd U-turn to walk in Hannah's direction.
Split them up, a couple guys on the right, couple guys on the left.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
News of Hannah Graham's disappearance put normally peaceful Charlottesville on high alert.
I was terrified when I found out just because I know it could have easily been me because I walked home alone.
I definitely thought differently walking to my car at night, having worked in that area. You know, I want to make sure, when I was leaving after a newscast at 11:30 at night, that there was someone watching me walk to my car. It was definitely on the back of everyone's minds.
Also on the back of everyone's mind, events of 5 years earlier, when another young woman simply vanished off these streets.
2009, you have this Virginia Tech student, Morgan Harrington, who is last seen at a Metallica concert at the John Paul Jones Arena.
It was Saturday, October 17, 2009. 20-year-old Morgan Harrington drove from her parents' home in Roanoke, Virginia to the UVA campus arena to see one of her favorite bands.
Morgan had come to spend the weekend with us, which was not unusual, and was really excited about the Metallica concert.
It was the last time her parents, Jill and Dan Harrington, would see their daughter alive. How long was it before you were aware that anything at all was wrong?
On Sunday morning, about 11 o'clock, I received a call from the University of Virginia police, who informed me that Morgan's purse had been found in a parking lot.
I knew that minute something terrible had happened.
And Morgan, you knew, was gone.
Morgan was like the moon. She was reflecting the light that was in the world.
Lindsay Crisp grew up with Morgan, friends since elementary school.
Wherever she walked in, there was a shift in the energy.
Morgan was a lot of fun, you know? She had finally reached that point in life where we had an adult relationship with her. And it was really an exciting, very gratifying point in time.
She was someone who loved art and music, did not like math and science, which is, we are math and science people.
Lindsay was in Europe when Morgan went missing, only to come home to a terrible shock.
My parents stood me in the den and they said, "We need to let you know Morgan's gone. She's been missing for 10 days. It felt like there was no hope in that moment, and so I ran upstairs and just cried.
Investigators had little to work with. At one point, Morgan had left her friends, something had happened, and she ended up outside the arena.
Morgan left to go to the restroom, and we have a witness that Morgan was bleeding from an injury on her face. So we assume that at some point between the seat and the restroom, Morgan fell. And then the next thing we heard was that Morgan had left the building and they wouldn't let her back in.
There was a report that she was seen hitchhiking. Does that make sense to you?
It does now. She was reported to be confused, and how's Morgan going to get home?
Morgan Harrington was last seen on this bridge, alone, on foot, and possibly injured. Unable to get back into the concert, she may have simply decided to find her own way to her friend's apartment, a casual decision that likely cost her her life.
I think Morgan was impaired. I think she was injured. She was not thinking clearly.
Yeah, I think that someone driving a taxi cab stopped and Morgan felt safe and got in, and I think the rest is history.
But this is your theory about
That's my
the cab
theory.
driver. Nobody actually saw a cab or saw her get into a cab.
No.
This weekend's search for Morgan Harrington will start here, where she was last seen on this bridge.
Within days, Morgan's disappearance was dominating the local news and social media.
Family members, volunteers, and friends will scour the Charlottesville area looking for clues, looking for anything that could lead them to Morgan.
And as with Hannah Graham years later, the community responded.
We had 2,000 people searching for Morgan over a weekend.
Morgan's case was one of the first cases that used social media to solicit information and tips and as a crime-solving tool.
Just passing out flyers.
We felt that the only way that we could help Morgan was to not let Morgan's case be swept under the rug. If Morgan is out there and hears us, please come home.
We are trying to find you. We will never stop. We are trying, honey. Hang on.
Even Metallica tried to help.
Any information, no matter how small you might think it is, could be that crucial piece investigators need to help solve the case.
Somewhere out there lies the answers, or lies the vital link of information that we need.
Help us bring Morgan home for Christmas.
You are basically swinging on a pendulum between hope and despair.
It becomes pretty clear after a couple days that, it's probably not going to turn out good.
You are basically swinging on a pendulum between hope and despair.
It becomes pretty clear after a couple days that, it's probably not going to turn out good.
Tragically, Morgan's father was right.
Breaking news this afternoon out of Albemarle County.
In January 2010, 3 months after Morgan disappeared, human remains were found on a farm just 10 miles from the UVA campus.
We're fairly confident this time that the remains are those of Morgan Dana Harrington.
She was found by a farmer who was checking his fences and saw what he thought initially was, a deer carcass. But it was not. It was our daughter.
But a forensic exam of the remains apparently yielded no clues as to who her assailant was. That would come from a T-shirt.
The T-shirt, I believe, was found in November, a couple weeks after Morgan was killed.
Found one day draped over a bush near the UVA campus.
The most disturbing to me was that it had been put out like a trophy, and just the nerve and cockiness of a perpetrator who would leave a trophy like that in the middle of a campus.
They were able to actually pick up some of Morgan's DNA in the T-shirt.
Even more importantly, testing picked up unknown DNA. And when police ran it through their database, they got a hit. Not to a person, but to another crime. 4 years earlier and 100 miles away.
They had foreign DNA in their case, which was matched to my foreign DNA in my case.
In the fall of 2005, a man attacked, beat, and sexually assaulted a young woman in Fairfax, Virginia. Detective Michael Boone was the lead investigator.
This is just an aerial of the general area.
It is. It's a 2005 aerial.
The woman, who asked to be identified only as RG, was walking home from her local supermarket sometime after 8:30 p.m. She's captured here on a security camera.
She felt somebody behind her, and she turned and was face-to-face with the suspect and asked him if she could help him, and he stated something to the effect that he was waiting for a friend or something, and she felt uncomfortable. She had a vibe and just kept moving, and when she reached the front of her residence, she said she heard footsteps coming quickly behind her, and then she was picked up off the ground.
And how violent an attack was this?
You call it a blitzkrieg type of attack. Comes out of nowhere.
Blitzkrieg type of attack?
Yeah, comes out of nowhere. Very fast, very violent. He takes her and carries her across the parking lot into the wooded area down where this large tree is.
I parked roughly where that green truck is over there.
It was just blind luck that Mark Castro came along when he did.
What was the reason that you were even here that night?
I was here to see a boxing match at my friend's house.
Just stop by and see the boxing match.
That's right.
When Mr. Castro pulled in and parked in this general area, the lights from his car would have been shining into the area where they were.
Those lights may have saved the woman's life.
The suspect stood up, looked and looked towards the parking lot, which is where Mr. Castro was standing, and she said he took off running.
Out of the corner of my eye, I see a figure standing roughly in front of that trash can. I was just shocked, and am I believing what I'm seeing right now?
What were you seeing?
I was seeing a lady that was beaten nearly to death, and she was covered in mud and covered with blood, and she was walking towards me.
Did she say anything about what had happened?
She told me that, there's a guy back there.
Just back there, meaning
yeah,
back
there.
in the woods?
Right. And after that, I sprinted back there, screaming at the top of my voice, telling whoever it was to come out.
But the attacker was gone.
I turned around and come back to her, and then made sure to get her to safety. I knocked on each and every house until someone answered the door.
She went to Fairfax Hospital, the emergency room, where we bring in a forensic nurse who does the sexual assault exam. They scrape the underside of the fingernails.
And there was DNA evidence?
Yes.
The next day, the victim, RG, was able to describe her assailant to a sketch artist who produced a composite.
Approximately 6'2", maybe 200 pounds, short hair with a mustache and beard.
But a description of the suspect, a sketch, even his DNA did not answer the central question. Who was he? It would take another tragedy and another lost life to answer that.
The DNA evidence had been found in the Morgan Harrington case, and I just had a feeling on the Hannah Graham case.
You make things good, Hannah Graham. Where are you? We want you back where you belong.
The days go by with no trace of second-year UVA student Hannah Graham. Despite what would become the largest search in Virginia's history.
Members of the Charlottesville community have turned out in force to help. Armies of Hannah's university friends have been helping.
Each day, hundreds of volunteers show up, including one who has lived through this all before.
I read that Alexis Murphy's aunt Trina was helping. Thank you, ma'am.
When my niece was missing, I wanted the whole world looking for her. When they had the big search for Hannah, I went out to help look for her. It's just heartbreaking.
Like the Grahams and the Harringtons, Trina Murphy knows the pain of having a child go missing. She knows it all too well.
The FBI is in day 3 of its search for Alexis Murphy, and there's still no sign of her.
If anybody know anything, please, let us know. Please.
They have expanded their search for Murphy.
The more people that are looking, the better chance we have of finding her.
On August 3rd, 2013, 4 years after Morgan's murder, a year before Hannah Graham went missing, Trina's niece, 17-year-old Alexis Murphy, left her home in Shipman, Virginia on a routine errand. Shipman's less than 40 miles from Charlottesville.
She was planning to go to Lynchburg to buy hair extensions because she was getting her hair done for her senior pictures. Her last tweet was bird bound.
Alexis's mother, Laura Murphy. And this is a kid who tweets and calls all the time,
all the
right?
time,
He's
yeah.
constantly trying to stay in touch.
Right. She was a very happy child. Alexis loved making people laugh.
Go.
We had videos where she dancing, and she could dance.
Her mother and aunt knew something was seriously wrong when they heard nothing from Alexis for hours.
There was not a single tweet, not a single text message, not a single phone call, no activity on her cell phone once she left Liberty.
That's the Liberty gas station where Alexis was last seen. Like Hannah Graham, her movements caught on tape. What did you think then when you saw that tape?
You know, how could she go missing from the Liberty gas station? What happened? What transpired in those minutes that we don't have her on camera?
In surveillance video not yet released to the public, Alexis's car is seen leaving this gas station, apparently following an SUV. Investigators identify its owner as one Randy Taylor, and witnesses say he often would just hang around the gas station watching people.
I just think that he had been stalking her. He knew her routine.
It didn't take much time to link him to her disappearance.
They found her hair extensions in his trailer. She had a Monroe piercing, she had a nose piercing, she had false fingernails. They were found in there. And her blood on the shirt he was wearing that day, seen in the video.
Police find her car in a movie theater parking lot in Charlottesville. Inside the car, they find DNA they can't identify from several sources, but none of it matches the unknown DNA from the Harrington murder and the Fairfax rape. Even without finding Alexis, they arrest Randy Taylor and charge him with her murder. His trial is attended by someone who truly understands what the Murphys are going through.
Well, Jill reached out to us probably about 3 weeks after Alexis was abducted.
Jill Harrington makes the 3.5-hour round trip every day.
And I also wanted to be there and shoulder and support them any way I could.
It means a great deal to us. Jill has really, really helped me.
Guilty on all counts.
The jury convicts Randy Taylor. He is sentenced to life. Alexis never has been found.
When we left court, they said we're never gonna give up searching for her.
And now the Murphys and the Harringtons join the Grahams in the search for Hannah.
Trina Murphy and I converged on Charlottesville to talk to the community, to ask for tips, to ask for participation in search, because the Grahams were unable to do that at that time, and we wanted to get as many people out there looking for Hannah as possible.
Just to hold their hand, to hold her mother's hand, and pray for their closure, you know, for them to find their daughter.
We're part of an ugly little club that we have some knowledge and some understanding of how to proceed. Once you know how bad it feels to have a murdered child, you want to do whatever you can to help anyone else who's in the same terrible spot that you're in.
Police say they do have a person of interest in the disappearance of Hannah Graham.
On day 6 of Hannah's disappearance, acting on a tip, police identify and locate the man seen on tape with her in the mall.
They search his apartment. They seize his car. They obtain something out of his wallet. It's a tip that's used for cigars. And they take that into evidence and they send it off to be analyzed.
Within a day, the man's name leaks out. He is 32-year-old Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr. And before police can even confirm it to reporters, he simply walks into the police station voluntarily.
So Jesse Matthew arrived at the Charlottesville police station, and he said he wanted to get a lawyer. Matthew didn't answer any questions, wasn't interested in telling police anything, and he left the police station.
With no concrete evidence, they can't hold him, but that doesn't stop them from following him.
Several hours later, while police were following Jesse Matthew, he took off from his grandmother's house.
Driving his sister's car, he suddenly floors it.
And they lose him.
Excuse me?
They lose him.
Astonishingly, the only suspect in Hannah Graham's disappearance leaves police in the dust.
Police did not have the authority to chase him.
They didn't have enough to arrest him really at that point, but they really thought they had their suspect.
And he's gone. When news broke that Jesse Matthew was on the lam, Twitter exploded.
We have all these people who are already deeply involved in this case, searching for answers, racking their brains, and they're coming up with ideas and saying, well, why aren't police doing that? Why can't police do this? Things don't work as quickly in real life as they do on a TV show.
I believe Jesse Matthew was the last person she was seen with before she vanished off the face of the earth. Because it's been a week and we can't find her. But somebody knows where she is. Somebody's got to know where she is. So I hope and pray that we might have an opportunity to talk to Jesse Matthew again. Because I think he can help us find Hannah Graham.
And just days after fleeing, Matthew, still on the run, is formally charged in Hannah's abduction.
The Commonwealth felt we had sufficient probable cause to seek an arrest warrant for Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr. of Charlottesville, charging him with a Class 2 felony of abduction with the intent to defile.
And for the first time,
my name is Sue Graham.
Hannah's mother speaks out.
Somebody listening to me today either knows where Hannah is or knows someone who has that information. We appeal to you to come forward and tell us where Hannah can be found.
They only knew that Hannah was missing. They didn't know where she was. They didn't know if she was alive or dead. Everybody had their fears, but nobody knew.
Now, police aren't just looking for one missing person, they are looking for two.
Days are going by and we don't know where Jesse Matthew is.
In Albemarle County, searches had become daily events. Searches for both UVA student Hannah Graham and for the only suspect in her disappearance, Jesse Matthew.
Not only do we have each day that's ticking by that the Graham family doesn't know where their daughter is, but we also have the person that they say was last seen with her. We don't know where he is. There's no clues being offered. It was tense.
This press conference and every press conference hereafter is about one thing and one thing only, and that is finding Hannah.
This was a very heated few days.
I'm hoping that they're hearing my words and seeing my frustration.
Chief Longo was obviously very involved in this.
And pick up the phone and tell us something, regardless of how insignificant you think it might be.
He was speaking to the press and speaking directly to Jesse Matthew.
I've made no mistake about it. We want to talk to Jesse Matthew. We want to talk about his interaction with the sweet young girl that we can't find, because he was with her.
Surely someone had information about Jesse Matthew. After all, the then 32-year-old grew up in Charlottesville, went to high school there, and was working at the University Hospital, transporting patients.
People have been trying to learn more about Jesse Matthew since they first heard his name. People who've known him had called him a gentle giant. And this was a guy who was a football player. This was a guy who was working in Charlottesville with kids. He was a volunteer football coach.
He was a quiet guy and mentored these high school students. In fact, the night that Hannah Graham went missing, he was at the game that Friday night, helping these kids, cheering them on. So on the outside, nothing seemed suspect. I have talked to friends of his who said, I trusted him with my children.
Nobody said, yeah, you know, Jesse always had trouble and this is the kind of thing we would have expected. I mean, that...
No. If anything, it was, he was not capable of premeditating anything. He may have been awkward socially sometimes and quiet, but never could he be capable of this.
He was a team player. He was always there and participating in team activities.
William Haith knew Jesse Matthew when both played football at Virginia's Liberty University, which Matthew attended from 2000 to 2002.
He knew how to play football, and he was actually great at it. I thought he had potential to do some great things on the football field.
But off the field, information began to circulate that cast Matthew, or LJ, as his friends called him, in a much different light.
My head coach let us know they were going to put LJ off the team because apparently he had forced himself on a female student.
Did anybody ever say, hey, you know, what happened? Is this true?
Once he was kicked off the team, no one that I know of actually went out their way just to get more detail. His roommate said that he may not have known that he was going too far, but again, that's speculation, hearsay from his roommate. There were so many rumors going around, but there was no concrete evidence.
Lynchburg police did confirm they conducted an investigation of an alleged rape that occurred around the same time, but no criminal charges were filed. Still, Matthew left, not just the football team, but the university. And teammates, says Haith, quickly put the incident and Jesse Matthew behind them.
None of us came in defense of him. I mean, it lingered on for maybe a couple of days, but then we kept it moving.
After Liberty, Matthew attended Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia. Again, he was on the football team, and again, he left after just a few months amid allegations of another sexual assault.
What happened to these cases?
It went under the radar. They didn't press charges. So the next university did not know what they were getting.
There's no requirement
There was no requirement that they needed to alert the other university of why he was transferring. So there's these allegations, and next thing you know, he's transferred.
They never had a determination by anybody that he was dangerous.
Attorney Lloyd Snook.
Looking back, you can't help but say, Gosh, if there'd been a requirement that the colleges make this public.
Well, it's probably more to the point that when there is no actual prosecution, that's where the system fails.
Not once, but twice.
That's right.
After leaving his second college, Matthew came back to Charlottesville, driving a cab for a few years. He had a few minor run-ins with police, traffic violations, and trespassing.
To kill or hurt somebody, that's not my son.
Matthew's father, like many, was bewildered at the thought that Jesse could be involved in something as serious as Hannah Graham's abduction.
I can see him maybe trying to give the girl a ride home or help her out.
Mostly, I'm just really shocked.
Frances Lee Vandell was Matthew's landlady.
We don't know a thing yet. We don't know a thing. Everything seemed to be going well for Jesse. He'd had a promotion at the hospital.
Charges are filed against a man authorities believe was the last person seen with a University of Virginia student before her disappearance more than 1 week ago.
I'm watching the news, I'm shocked, I'm like, wow, this LJ that went to school with me?
William Haith hadn't seen or heard from Matthew in years. When he learned that his former teammate was suspected in Hannah Graham's disappearance, his reaction was pure shock at first.
And then next, you know, everything just started flashing through my head. The incident that happened at Liberty, like, wow, could LJ have done this?
And how did you answer that?
At first, you know, I'm like, no. He just seemed to be a caring person. But again, then when you start looking at some of the other things, then I thought that possibly.
You almost get the impression of two Jesse Matthews.
Who was the real Jesse Matthew? Maybe this guy was okay. People were trying to get in touch with the family, with his lawyer.
I am Mr. Matthews' attorney. I was hired by him and his family on Saturday. That's the only comment I'll make at this time.
Looking, asking, tell us a little bit about him. Let us at least paint a picture that's fair. I think that everyone was trying to maintain hope that maybe this was a mistake.
But as the days wore on, with no sign of Hannah Graham or Jesse Matthew, hope was scarce, with memories turning to those other young women for whom searches had failed.
They may not have all been connected, but it definitely was on the minds of people living in and around Central Virginia, the Charlottesville area.
I think most people were beginning to think pretty bleak thoughts. Somebody give us some information about something.
Soon, someone would, and the twisted trail of Jesse Matthew would take a surprising turn into the past.
This car came in front of me and stopped, and the fellow that was sitting in the driver's seat kind of glares at me. I had seen his face on the news every morning. My heart literally probably stopped beating because I knew that was him.
This special two-part edition of 48 Hours will continue. This special two-part edition of 48 Hours continues.
There is a developing story out of Charlottesville.
It was just a few hours after this picture was taken that Hannah Elizabeth Graham went missing.
Hannah Graham had just started her second year at the University of Virginia.
We're going to continue to work relentlessly until we find Hannah Graham.
The first thing that came to my mind was the name Morgan Harrington.
Police are again desperate for details in the case of missing Morgan Harrington.
Morgan was another college student that had gone to a concert. one October 2009 night.
The FBI is in day 3 of its search for Alexis Murphy, and there's still no sign of her.
Here you have a high school student who leaves for the day to get some hair products.
Alexis, if you can hear me, this is your dad. I'm letting you know that I won't give up. I want you home.
Hannah Graham, Morgan Harrington, Alexis Murphy. Why in this nice area are these young girls going missing?
If Morgan is out there and hears us, please come home.
If anybody knows anything, please let us know.
We are trying to find you. We will never stop.
All we want to do now is to bring Hannah home safely.
They could track through the various video cameras where she had gone. They knew that she had been at the University of Virginia at a bar, then she had been walking around a bar a mile away, then she had been downtown, then she just vanished.
Somebody listening to me today either knows where Hannah is or knows someone who has that information.
They didn't know if she was alive or dead. Everybody had their fears, but nobody knew.
Split them up, a couple guys on the right.
You are basically swinging on a pendulum between hope and despair.
If you attend the University of Virginia, if that young lady's touched your life in any way, you have the responsibility to help us find her.
When Alexis was missing, I wanted the whole world looking for her.
Over the weekend, 1,200 volunteers covered 85% of the city searching for additional clues.
This is probably one of the greatest coordinated search efforts in the history of the Commonwealth.
And now we have reason to believe she was inside of a bar on this mall with an individual.
Having done a little bit more investigating, that is when they started learning the name Jesse Matthew Jr.
Jesse Matthew was the last person she was seen with before she vanished off the face of the earth.
People have been trying to learn more about Jesse Matthew since they first heard his name.
They search his apartment. They seize his car.
So certainly he is the focus of our investigation.
And they're coming out with evidence.
Police say forensic evidence also connects him to the death of Morgan Harrington.
And I think that's when they started thinking, could this be the same person?
Several hours later, while police were following Jesse Matthew, he took off from his grandmother's house.
And they lose him.
Excuse me?
They lose him.
They really thought they had their suspect.
And he's gone.
We want to talk to Jesse Matthew. We want to talk about where Hannah Graham is.
I'm Susan Spencer. Tonight on 48 Hours, Hannah Graham, stalked by evil.
The disappearance of Hannah Graham left the audience across the country hungry for every detail on Twitter.
September 21st, 2014, a week after Hannah Graham went missing. And Jesse Matthew, the one person who may hold the key to her whereabouts, is missing as well.
Matthew was last seen Saturday, speeding away from police who were following him.
I hope and pray that we might have an opportunity to talk to Jesse Matthew again, because I think he can help us find Hannah Graham.
It was tense. It was already tense, and it was even tenser, because now we don't know where he is.
WTVR reporter and 48 Hours consultant Laura French wasn't the only one speechless to learn that police had let their only suspect slip away.
So Jesse Matthew is gone.
Jesse Matthew is gone. I even joked with one of the investigators and said, "You guys really know where he is. You're watching him."
Surely.
Here are some serious accusations against this individual. And you don't know where he is? He fled, and he fled far.
Police have released this wanted poster of Jesse Leroy Matthew.
He is the last person that was with Hannah, so certainly he is the focus of our investigation.
Remarkably, 4 days after he fled, Jesse Matthew is spotted in, of all places, Galveston, Texas, on a near-empty beach 1,300 miles from Charlottesville.
Fast forward to September 24th. We have a woman out on the beach looking just for a peaceful afternoon to watch the water.
That woman was Karen Monk.
His tent was about right here, close to the grass, and his car was parked on the other side.
She's sitting in the back of her car, and she sees this man in a tent, you know, a few yards down from her. Doesn't think much of it until he drives by her.
This car came in front of me and stopped, and the fellow that was sitting in the driver's seat, his windows were down, and he leans over and looks, kind of glares at me.
Monk suddenly found herself face to face with one of the most wanted men in the country.
When I looked up and I saw him, I mean, his facial features are unmistakable. I just held my breath, just hoping he would just keep going. My heart literally probably stopped beating because I knew that was him.
You mean to tell me that she recognized him on the beach from a wanted poster that she'd seen on television, or what?
From a mugshot. And she's like, okay, do I leave because I'm probably in danger, or do I stay here so I can tell police exactly where he is?
She not only stayed, she called every law enforcement agency she could think of, finally getting a response from the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. They found Jesse Matthew on the beach and arrested him without incident.
How does she view what she did?
She's very humble. She views it as being in the right place at the right time and doing the right thing.
We're here tonight to announce that Jesse Matthew was in custody in Galveston, Texas.
And apparently he had bigger travel plans than Texas. A map of Mexico was found in his car. Now in custody, he was headed not south, but north, back to Charlottesville, Virginia.
He was locked up in Galveston for 40-some hours. Charlottesville authorities came and flew him back here, and they had him by their side at all times.
But Matthew quickly dashed any hope police had that he'd give them information about Hannah Graham.
He never cooperated with anybody as far as answering questions voluntarily.
Never has.
Never has.
We have a person in custody, but there's a long road ahead of us, and that long road includes finding Hannah Graham.
Now the search expanded out from Charlottesville and the university campus here to the surrounding countryside. And despite the growing odds against this having a good outcome, no one was giving up. In fact, the volunteers just kept on coming.
I got 3 more for your team.
It wasn't clear whether she was alive or dead at this point.
Neil Augenstein covered this story both for WTOP Radio and online. He's also a 48 Hours consultant.
As time went on, people were thinking more and more that she probably had died.
This specialized team of trackers searched for Hannah Graham on Friday afternoon. The team, which includes a navigator, a dog, and a handler, is directing the dog off trail to find any trace of a human scent.
Nice job.
People wanted answers. People wanted closure. People wanted it now.
But no one wanted the news that came on October 18th, 35 days after Hannah disappeared.
We're following a developing story out of Albemarle County.
Sometime before noon today, a search team from the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Department was searching an abandoned property along Old Lynchburg Road in southern Albemarle County when they discovered what appears to be human remains.
Where the human remains were found was behind a home that nobody was living in at the time, and this was within a few miles of a home where Jesse Matthew had grown up and spent time with his family.
How far was this from Charlottesville?
So this house was 5, 6, 7 miles out of downtown Charlottesville.
What also intrigued investigators, the site where Morgan Harrington's remains had been found 4 years earlier was only a few miles away. With the discovery of Hannah's body, the community that had searched so long and hard with John and Susan Graham now could only grieve with them.
As a parent, my heart sank because it was final. Their worst fears had come to light, but at the same time, they were able to bring her home.
The focus turns now to the suspect in custody and charged with her abduction, 32-year-old Jesse Matthew.
The next challenge, building a solid case against Jesse Matthew. He wasn't talking, but science was about to do the talking for him.
I obtained a search warrant for Mr. Matthews for his DNA.
I have a lot of friends that go to UVA. My initial reaction was, how could this be?
After a month of vigils and hopes and prayers for Hannah Graham, the reality of her murder was a horrific shock.
This is our opportunity to create a silver lining in the tremendous cloud that Hannah's fate represented to us.
When it comes to these sort of girl gone missing stories, there's always this barrier of ignorance where you don't know the person who's on the other side of the screen. And I did this time.
Hannah's friend, Lila Nasser.
It's something that's so overwhelming and so powerful, and you can't understand or fathom why anybody would do this.
Law enforcement wanted to ask that very question to Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr., who now sat in jail, formally charged with abduction with intent to defile Hannah Graham. He was not charged with murder.
People have been calling for the death for Jesse Matthew before Hannah Graham's body was even found. This is showing the power of Twitter and not necessarily for good. People were convinced of his guilt.
While Matthew was behind bars in Charlottesville, a case 100 miles away in Fairfax, Virginia, ice cold for nearly 10 years, was about to heat up.
I was getting ready to leave to go out of town to Georgia to a funeral. I was watching the video of Hannah Graham going through the mall down there.
Detective Michael Boone had never stopped working that unsolved rape case from 2005 involving the victim known only as RG. He'd had little to go on but the composite sketch of her rapist.
Hey, we're searching for Hannah.
But then, one day, he happened to glimpse news coverage of the Graham case.
The person Charlottesville police most want to question is this man, Jesse Matthew.
I saw the picture of Jesse Matthews and I saw the picture of the composite drawing. So, I mean, I knew they had the right person.
You knew the second you saw his picture?
Yeah.
He had been looking at that composite for almost 10 years, and his gut told him that without question, his rapist and Jesse Matthew were one and the same, that Matthew's DNA would match the unidentified DNA in his rape case. So Boone gets a search warrant and speeds off to Charlottesville to meet with his suspect.
So you take this sample, and what did you do with the sample?
I drove it to the Department of Forensic Science to the Citro Lab in Richmond.
A quick turnaround, got an answer in a week.
So the word was, look, we need this.
Well, they knew. They knew what we were dealing with. Yes.
What do you think you were dealing with?
Very violent sexual offender.
The results? A bombshell. Boone was right. Jesse Matthews' DNA matched that of the Fairfax rapist.
I held out hope every year that he was going to get identified. It's just like, finally.
But there was more, because remember, the rapist's DNA matched DNA found on Morgan Harrington's T-shirt after her murder. Now, investigators knew whose DNA it was.
Breaking news.
We were able to confirm today that Jesse Matthew Jr. has been linked, forensic evidence has linked him to the Morgan Harrington case from 2009.
Wow. You broke this.
I did. We know that Jesse Matthew at some point made contact with Virginia Tech student Morgan Dana Harrington the night she disappeared and 3 months later was later found murdered. That's what we do know. It doesn't mean he did something.
Fast forward to 2014 to Jesse Matthew and the Hannah Graham case.
We know that police have forensic evidence that places her with him. What that is, we don't know.
We know she was with him.
We know she was with him.
She's on tape with him.
But the question is, did she leave in his car? That's what's not been made public.
The key would be evidence showing what happened to Hannah after she was last seen at the restaurant with Matthew. Police searched his car within days of her disappearance and will say only that no blood was found.
The state has in its possession a digital record from a cell tower from Hannah Graham's phone. We also know that there's digital records from her Facebook account, Skype, Snapchat, Twitter, all those different social media venues. But there's about 50 plus search warrants, so half of those we don't know about.
But on October 20th, 2014, 2 days after Hannah Graham's remains were discovered, authorities indict Jesse Matthew, not for Hannah's murder, nor for Morgan's, but for the attempted capital murder, abduction, and sexual assault of the anonymous RG back in 2005, apparently feeling that the rape case was the strongest. It was bittersweet news for Jill and Dan Harrington.
Why have there been no charges filed in Morgan's case?
I think they want to finish prosecuting the Fairfax case.
So you fully expect that there will be?
Yes, I do.
To show their support, the Harringtons will be front and center at Jesse Matthews' upcoming rape trial. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, prosecutors are scrambling to build a solid case against Matthew for the murder of Hannah Graham, and pressure is building. Suspected killer Jesse Matthew was safely behind bars, but each passing day brought the question: when would he be charged with Hannah Graham's murder?
On Monday, February 2nd, 2015, Jesse Matthew Jr. was indicted in Albemarle County for abduction and murder of Hannah Graham.
It was 5 months after she vanished before prosecutors had the evidence they needed.
What we don't know is what they found in his apartment. We can report this much, though. In the second search of his apartment, police went in there for something very specific. And when asked if they got what they went in there for, they said, yes, we did. Those details, presumably, will come out in court.
But relief that the Graham case was moving forward mixed with disappointment, especially, once again, in the Twitter sphere.
When Jesse Matthew was first charged with first-degree murder, people were outraged. Why were they going to go for the death penalty?
Jesse Matthew Jr. was served that new indictment.
That all changed 3 months later, when the Commonwealth attorney announced she would seek the death penalty after all.
The Commonwealth received some additional forensic information in late February that led to this increase in charge.
Was upping the charges to capital murder a strategic move, or was that based on some bombshell evidence they may have had?
They haven't told us.
Charlottesville attorney Lloyd Snook has been following the Graham case.
Some other evidence. Maybe there's some DNA evidence that hadn't come back from the lab yet. In addition, there is a second analysis, and that is to weigh aggravating and mitigating circumstances.
Well, what would those be?
Well, that's a long way of saying that it was a really, really awful crime. Not just awful because all murders are awful, but something really, really bad.
I want to see what happens when evil intersects with justice.
Thanks for making the trip.
Jill Harrington was at a pretrial hearing in Hannah Graham's case the day the change to the death penalty was announced. She supports the move.
I really don't know what the justification for changing the charge is, but some bad things happened. Lives were lost.
As the years have gone by, her daughter's case has seemed to be stalled, despite that T-shirt DNA linking Matthew to Morgan.
A trial for Morgan, we do want to have that day, but it really changes nothing in our lives. Our lives are as empty. The pain that we'll have after a trial is the same pain that we have today.
By spring of 2015, Matthew faced 2 trials, for the murder of Hannah Graham and for the 2005 abduction, sexual assault, and attempted capital murder of the woman known as RG. And questions were raised about a Matthew connection to the Alexis Murphy case. Questions generated by attorneys for her convicted killer, Randy Taylor. They demanded evidence be tested for Matthew's DNA, just in case.
We're fine with that. Let's say by the off chance they do find Jesse Matthews' DNA in her car. It just means that he was also involved. It doesn't make Randy Taylor any less guilty than he is now.
What do you think the odds of that are?
Honestly, I think it's pretty slim.
Trina Murphy, Alexis's aunt, was right. No DNA link with Matthew was found.
Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr.
Meanwhile, after nearly a decade, RG's case was moving forward.
Attempt to kill RG in the commission.
With hearings.
How do you plead to that charge?
Not guilty.
And finally, in June 2015, a trial, with Jesse Matthews' fate depending on the DNA and on testimony from the anonymous victim, RG.
Well, she was hesitant. She was worried.
Commonwealth Attorney Ray Morrow.
She is a very dignified woman from a different culture, very well educated, I might say brilliant, and she wanted her privacy. But at the same time, we tried to make sure she had the opportunity to get her voice heard.
Since the rape, RG had moved back home to Asia to a new life. Seeking justice meant not only traveling halfway around the world, but publicly reliving perhaps the most terrifying moments of her life.
What do you think the specific impact was on her?
The trauma of it. It's just so violent.
Detective Boone had always kept in touch with her, contacting RG with any news about the case.
I picked her up at the airport. I hadn't seen her in such a long time. She was nervous. She's going to see him in court, and that's very stressful for a victim. Very stressful.
She did not want to be victimized again by some who might blame the victim. She didn't want people around her to know about it, and she didn't want it to define her.
She did nothing wrong.
No. Here, we understand that, but some people don't.
And the composite sketch RG helped put together back in 2005 posed a problem. The attack was at night. She was traumatized, and predictably, the defense insists that neither it nor an updated version looks anything like Jesse Matthew.
So going into this then, you have the sketch, and you've got a victim. You don't know how she's going to testify.
Right.
You're a little nervous as this starts?
I try not to be nervous, but it's always a risk to have a jury trial. I was concerned.
Justifiably so.
We're moving along rather quickly, so that's a good thing.
It was a move not many saw coming, including
the outcome of this trial, like everything else in these tangled cases, would defy everyone's predictions.
I'm kind of reeling.
This wasn't just a rape case. This was a rape case that was tied to the Hannah Graham case.
The trial of Jesse Matthew for attempted murder, abduction, and sexual assault takes place in the shadow of the Hannah Graham case. Although unlike Hannah, this victim, known only as RG, does survive. In June of 2015, she travels from her home in Asia here to Fairfax, Virginia for Matthew's trial, hoping to help put him behind bars, and not just for herself.
We thought about our victim in our case and Hannah and Morgan pretty much every day from the day that we found out that this was our man. It strikes at your heart, as a father myself, but just as a human being. I mean, I can't think of anything worse than attacking a woman or a child. Hopefully we'll be out of court soon.
Commonwealth Attorney Ray Morrow was happy to have his case against Matthew go first, hoping to pave the way for future prosecutions for Hannah and for Morgan.
I think every bit of testimony that was heard in this case, you were listening with the thought that could this somehow be related to these other cases?
The judge allowed no cameras, but sketches and Neil Augenstein's tweets painted a vivid picture from the first moment RG walked into the courtroom.
This was the first time that she was in the same room with Jesse Matthew in 10 years. I and everyone else in the courtroom was looking to see who was making eye contact with who.
Did she ever look at him?
I never once saw her look at Jesse Matthew.
Did he look at her?
He looked at her the whole time.
I think there was some expectation that at the trial she would sit there and go, you know, that's him.
Yeah, that was an issue, but she hadn't seen it in 10 years, so I wasn't going to press her on that. She came just a whisper from being murdered, and there in the courtroom, 20 feet from her, sits the man who tried to murder her.
In a hushed voice, RG testified about that horrible night, saying her attacker picked her up from behind, like a baby, and then she went on. He put me on the ground, and he sat on my legs, and he banged my head on the grass, on the ground. He hit my face, beat me. I was screaming and yelling.
I think at first she was extremely nervous and admitted certain parts that she put in a part of her mind that she didn't want to bring back out, but she knew she had to.
I was punching him. I was trying to kick. He sealed my nose and my mouth with his hands, and he choked me. He was pulling my pants down. I was still struggling.
She told the story. She didn't seek vengeance on the stand.
He said, "I will kill you. If you scream again, I'll twist your neck. Let me do this. I'll let you go." The nightmare only ended, she said, when he dragged her into a ditch and ran off. RG was a very good witness.
I didn't see anybody, but, you know.
Also testifying was Mark Castro, the passerby who heard RG's cries that night. He found her confused and covered in blood. He got a neighbor to call 911 and stayed until the ambulance arrived.
What did you feel was the most important thing that you needed to get across to the jury?
Her condition. It was not just a typical assault. This is attempted murder. She looked like somebody that was near dead.
You wanted to be sure they understood how badly hurt she was.
That's right.
I'll look at the defendants, you just see if there's any emotion, expression. There wasn't any from him.
Unlike RG, Michael Boone did look Jesse Matthew in the eye, as the lead detective testified about how he got the vitally important sample of Matthew's DNA.
I went through and explained to him how I collected it, put on gloves, and then swabbed the inside of his mouth, and took that back and submitted it to the Department of Forensic Science.
DNA was pivotal to the trial. Experts testified that the sample from Matthew matched what was found under RG's fingernail.
How strong was the DNA evidence? What were the numbers?
It was 1 in 7 billion that it could have been anyone else but the defendant. So 1 in greater than the world's population.
Now, 1 in 7 billion is pretty clear.
That's a pretty good number.
After 2.5 days, the prosecution rested and attention turned to the defense.
The defense asked for a brief recess. The brief recess lasted longer and longer.
What are you thinking during all this?
At first, I just thought they were trying to decide whether they were going to put on a defense or not.
Then you see Jesse's family get taken in the back. Then you see them go back and forth. But then you see prosecutors just sitting there. So you're thinking there can't be a deal going on. Then you see his mom in tears. What's happening?
It was at that point that Neil Augenstein, who at over 6 feet tall has a rather good vantage point, noticed something else.
I watched the prosecutors walking down the aisle, and I looked at the paperwork. It said Alford plea. So I went on Twitter and started tweeting that the defense and prosecution were handling printed copies of an Alford plea.
Neil's tweets broke the story that there would be no jury verdict. Jesse Matthew would plead guilty, albeit a slightly qualified guilty.
They kind of threw the towel in on it, made a decision to plead Alford, which is a type of guilty plea where the defendant is allowed to say, the evidence against me is overwhelming, I'm pleading guilty, but I do not admit that I committed the crime.
You did not offer this.
No, I never offered any plea agreement. You know, we wanted the jury to decide it.
The only thing that he's gaining by doing an Alford plea here is not having to look at his mother in the eye and say, this is what I did.
The plea stunned everyone, including Jill Harrington, who attended the trial to show support.
RG is one exceptional human being. I applaud her courage and determination in finding her justice in this court building today.
The trial didn't end as expected, but the result was all that mattered.
He's convicted. So we've done our job. He's off the street. We gave him no breaks. This is a good thing.
In the end, the judge gave Matthew the maximum in this case, 3 life sentences. For RG, it was a difficult but triumphant trip. And before flying home, she had some business to attend to with a man she had not seen since the night of the attack.
She said, "Thank you for saving my life."
Did you say anything else to her?
I said, "You're welcome." I just did what I thought was the best thing to do.
RG also thanked Detective Boone, whose business card she kept in her wallet all these years.
We went back into a conference room and she pulled it out and she said, "I guess I should give this back to you now." And I told her to keep it.
The RG case was closed, but suddenly, justice for another victim was moving with shocking speed.
In your heart, did you think you'd be standing here today?
Jesse!
Yes.
Reporters were stunned.
He was sitting really close to the Harrington family and looked right at them as he left the courtroom. They're coming out right now. I gotta go.
Perhaps no one was more shocked than the Harringtons themselves at the Commonwealth Attorney's blockbuster announcement.
Misindicted for first-degree murder and abduction with the intent to defile Morgan Harrington.
It has been such a long journey.
The charge is coming, finally, nearly 6 years after Morgan's death.
It makes more real the fact that Morgan is dead and, yes, was murdered.
He needs to know that justice is coming.
To drive the point home, the Harringtons resolutely locked eyes with Jesse Matthew as he walked past them in court.
I wanted him to see this is the face of justice for Jesse Matthews, because I've known and believed for some time that he killed our Morgan.
Trina Murphy is there for support.
God bless you, Trina. So sorry.
The trial was set for October 2016 in the Harrington case.
The maximum sentence in Harrington's murder is life in prison. If convicted for Hannah Graham's murder, Jesse Matthew could face the death penalty.
The Hannah Graham murder trial was scheduled for July of 2016, a capital case with plenty of time for a plea.
He can plead at any time up until he's found guilty.
What's he got to lose? He's facing the death penalty.
That's a hard call. I will say he's got some good lawyers. I think they'll fight it out.
And with much of the evidence in the Hannah Graham case sealed, it's unclear how strong a case the state really has.
We don't know what the evidence is. And they've actually been very careful in many ways to not put a lot of stuff out there.
Based on what you do know, would you be surprised if this ever went to trial?
Let's think about some of the circumstantial evidence issues here, okay? What we think we know is that they were seen together, say 1:30 at night, the night that she was last seen. Supposing the defense argues there's no evidence that he did anything to actually hurt her. That's a problem.
Hannah's family has grieved in private, leaving comments about the case to others. Hannah's coach, Craig Maniglia.
They're strong, and they will figure out a way to get around this. They won't get over it, but they'll go forward. I can tell you the Grahams want justice.
As do friends like Lila Nasser.
When you send your kids to college, you send them there to chase their dreams. Hannah didn't get that chance. Her last moments were at the mercy of a murderer monster.
Hannah's dreams were on everyone's mind this past summer, when several of her UVA classmates took to the mountains, pausing on the majestic French Alps and the peaks of Tanzania to remember her.
We had dreamed of going to hike Mont Blanc, talked about this.
3,800 meters in the air.
So we figured in a symbolic measure we would do this, bring her memorial there.
This was on Kilimanjaro, a simple tribute, says Alan Q, to an unquenchable spirit.
She loved hiking, she loved skiing, so I'd always imagine her skiing through the clouds.
Learning from these tragedies is of great importance to Jill Harrington.
I think we are at a critical time. There's a critical number of girls who have been killed or are missing from our area.
Never let a friend leave an event.
I will check on friends.
To increase awareness, the Harringtons founded an organization, Help Save the Next Girl.
We will help save the next girl.
Jill believes that what happened to Hannah, Morgan, Alexis, and RG hits close to home for many young women.
That was always my intent, was to save the next girl. Unfortunately, we couldn't save Hannah Graham.
Jill Harrington's crusade to protect young women continues. And as usual, Trina Murphy is at her side.
From the day we found your story while following the Hannah Graham story, we have not ceased to grieve and pray for you.
Alexis's body still has not been found.
It's now become bigger than just Alexis. And it's not about any one case or any one girl or guy. We have to unify. She is out there somewhere, and until we are able to bring her home, we don't have any closure.
It's been 720 days, 1,051,000 minutes since the last time we got to see her beautiful face.
In August 2015, the Murphys gathered for the second anniversary of Alexis's disappearance. For her mother, it felt like yesterday.
Just getting started in life.
Hi.
I never got pictures. I always wanted to see her dressed up to go to prom. I'll never see that.
All right, guys, it's 7:16, release.
Families need to understand that you really have to work at keeping their story alive. You just have to beat the drum, and it's the only way that we're going to ever affect change.
This poem is called Metallic.
Morgan Harrington's friend, Lindsay Crisp, found her own way to keep memories alive.
See, she was supposed to be at a Metallica concert.
In a raw and emotional piece she wrote and shared at an open mic event.
Do not let your girlfriends go out alone. Here?
A few days after her video hit social media, Lindsay was reunited with Jill Harrington.
Love you so much. I'm sorry it came to this, sweetie.
On the Copley Bridge for the first time since Morgan's death.
Last place where she was of her own volition. It's become kind of a memorial spot for us.
So now the bridge is full of color and pictures and a sign that says justice. It felt good to be able to do something for her.
And on the sidewalk, words of thanks to RG, the anonymous rape victim whose testimony and courage helped take a predator off the streets.
She's the one that got away, and I'm sure she didn't feel like the lucky one, but thank God she did.
She is the hero. I mean, she came back from far, far away and relived this thing. She didn't have to do it, but at the end of the day, this was something she had to do for the next woman and also for herself as a woman. And we're all just so proud of her.
But for those left behind without resolution, memories are tinged with heartache and with questions of what might have been.
I really sort of thought Morgan would be an artist.
I mean, she was just chock-a-block full of potential.
I mean, she could just roll out of bed and be gorgeous.
Loved to laugh. She was really, really funny.
She achieved everything she could at the highest level she could achieve it.
She was very smiley and silly too, which is what I want people to remember most of all. This warm, sunny, smiley girl full of life.
We start tonight with breaking news in the Jesse Matthew case. A plea agreement reached.
On March 2nd, 2016, just a few months before the Hannah Graham murder trial was to begin, Jesse Matthew accepted a deal.
Today, Jesse Matthew Jr. pled guilty to the first-degree murder of Hannah Graham. Guilty to the first-degree murder of Morgan Harrington.
In exchange for pleading guilty, Matthew no longer faced the death penalty. He will serve 4 consecutive life terms with no possibility of ever being released. Both the Harrington and the Graham families supported the plea agreement.
I would say the primary emotion is relief. Finding justice for Morgan has been a burden on our family for 6.5 years.
Today's events do not bring Hannah back to us, of course. We miss her every day. At times like this, one has to draw comfort where one can.
After the announcement, the Harringtons returned to the Copley Bridge. This time to tie green ribbons on the railings as a symbol of new growth and going forward. Jill said it would be their final visit to the bridge where Morgan was last seen.
You don't get over your daughter being murdered, but you can get past it, and we want to do that.
Hannah's enduring gift to us all is that she enabled this wicked man to be apprehended and convicted. She did change the world, but at a terrible price.